mishaps. Nothing new but the haps, y'all. That we miss.
Nothing new with the haps, y'all. What's happening, y'all? Welcome to the Red. I'm fucking done. No. I wish I could walk out, but I'm literally sitting in a closet. Hi guys, welcome to the Red Rum and Red Wine podcast, the podcast where we are taken very seriously and you don't judge us. And we also talk about murder, mystery, and mishaps. My name is Kristen.
My name is Sarah.
What up? Happy...
What up?
I'm like, what fucking year is it? It's 2022. Off to a shitty fucking start. R.I.P. Betty White. You were
a legend, a hero.
I'm not qualified enough to like give you a eulogy, so you were great. You were
Yay. Adjectives.
Oh yes. And like, can you tell that something was smoked before this?
And it wasn't my biscuit.
Oh god. So yeah, off to a fucking terrible fucking start. But honestly, like, what was what's literally expected? Not much.
The bar is low.
The bars. But honestly, that's like when the greatest stuff happens. Potentially, maybe we'll see.
Yeah, let's look at it that way.
Let's be positive and not depressive. Anywho,
my glass of wine is half full.
Oh, what kind of wine is it? Is it your good old trusty?
You know what I'm saying? It's that oak leaf.
Oh, I was about to say something different. Mine is, I'm bringing it back. I feel like very early episodes, but I don't know why I'm drinking this when it's fucking cold outside, but I have a ruby grapefruit beer.
Ruby Redbird Shiner.
Yeah, thank you for helping me out with that.
Is it not like a cold beer drink?
I mean, like...
Cold beer?
I mean, it's cold beer and it's good, but whenever I drink it, it's just very light, so it feels...
It is kind of like a summery
Yeah,
vibe.
It just feels weird when I want to throw a sweater on and, like, be in front of a fire and do, like, I don't know, fucking winter shit.
Yeah.
Read a book.
It snowed here New Year's Day, which was kind of cool and exciting.
Yeah, you showed me your little video.
Yeah, because it was supposed to rain New Year's Eve, and I really don't know if it did or not. I didn't go outside. It was fucking cold, and there were only like 2 fireworks that got shot off. And, you know, we, first of all, thought about going to a party, but didn't because there's no ride share where I live. And we would have to rely on maybe a DD, but we didn't have one. And so then another thing was I didn't want to leave Bush home alone with the fireworks, the pop-pops and the boom-booms, because he gets pretty bad when it's going off.
It's like so crazy to me still that like people are like in the new year before. There are like
it's time travel. It's crazy.
Like, I know there are people that literally like are a fucking day ahead of us, and I'm like, how is the next day? Like,
how is it? Yeah.
How is, like, what happens in the future even though it's happening right now? Like, my brain, what?
Yeah.
Can you tell how dumb I am?
Well, you know, even just taking a flight somewhere and there's the time differences, I always make this stupid joke of I'm time traveling right now because...
Yeah. Or like you're in 2 places at once when you like saddle up the border. You're like, oh my god. How does she do it? Witchcraft.
Anyways... I feel like my glass should be more full for what you're going to talk about, but...
I feel like I need to stop drinking for what I'm about to talk about, so I can talk about it, but... Oh my god, are you ready to talk about what I'm about to talk about?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because hold your heads to
Oh,
your
God.
fucking necks. Because today I am talking about the Valley of Headless Men.
Ooh.
So, thank you, Sarah. I had this one stored. It is a Ballin remake. So, thank you, John Ballin, for your research on this and your, like, inspiration for me to do this. But you talking about the Alaska Bermuda Triangle, I had to keep talking about this kind of shit. So
Ooh, yeah,
that
you
is
were
like,
thank you, Sarah. I was like, for what? Come on.
because it is, and I didn't remember where this location was, but when I looked it up, not that far off from the Alaska Bermuda Triangle, because we are in Canada, bitches.
Oh, hi.
I don't know how. How do Canada's
Heyo.
Canadian? Oh hey, Ohio.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. Is it Canadians or am I just insulting y'all? Let us know in an email so we can maybe finally get one.
Hey, Ohio is from Stuart Little.
Little hey, little ho, or something
little
like that.
Hey, little ho. Fuck. Somewhere in the realm.
Yeah. But on a serious note, let's talk about the valley that gives you some head in a place that you maybe don't want it. So,
Ooh.
our Valley of Headless Mans lies... Sorry. Serious. Our Valley of Headless Men lies in Nahani National Park, which is an 11,000 square mile park that is located in the Mackenzie Mountain region. And the Mackenzie Mountain region is located within the Deco region, which is part of the Northwest Territories of Canada, which is about 500 kilometers or 311 miles west of Yellowknife, which I believe is the closest town to this area. So, like, gives you an idea of how big this is. I know, like, in the Ballin episode, he makes some reference about, like, Germany being something about, like, way smaller of the size. I don't know. It's, like, a big fucking place, and the amount of people that live in this big fucking place is really low. So it's mainly wilderness, mainly nothing, no society out there. It's just fucking land, bears.
I vibes with ya.
Yeah. Wilderness. It became a designated national park in 1976, and then it became a part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1978. And though it is a national park, so you think, like, oh, cool, like, trails and shit. No, it is actually really hard to get to this place. So you have to either take a boat or a plane, or if you really want, you can try and hike, though it is, like,
Not
I wouldn't
recommend it.
Yeah, I wouldn't take this fucking hike. Like, please, no, thank you. And a lot of these places nowadays, like, you can't get into, technically. Like, you have to have special permission to enter. Wonder why.
I'm with the media.
Here's my badge. It is home to the Virginia Falls, which is about 315 feet or 96 meters tall. So it's like this huge waterfall, which is actually, fun fact, twice the size of Niagara Falls. So it is like, when I'm going to be posting a lot of, like, photos somewhere in the area, this place is fucking gorgeous when you look at it. Gorgeous and dangerous. It's like sheer huge cliffs, like gorgeous big ass rivers, like, just, I mean, it's breathtaking when you do see the photos that we have the pleasure of viewing. I mean, it's awesome. It also has a boiling whirlpool, which is known as Hell's Gate. And like I said, it has fucking majestic ass mountains. It has geysers. It has sinkholes. It has a shit ton of canyons, caves, both like land and ice caves. It has gorges. It has a forest. I mean, this place is fucking insane, and it is so insane because it like has never been touched by man. There is so little of us men, like of like modern men getting its like grubby little fingers and ruining it. Like, it's so dismal, and it's just so pretty.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds so diverse.
Described. Yeah. And it also has some like really rare, incredible shit. So like I just had to put this in. Probably no one cares, but it has this like fucking X Games mode of a river called the South Nahanni River, which is part of this like really what ends up being a deadly valley. And the really fun fact about this is it is a super rare river called an antecedent river, which means that the river is maintaining the same velocity that it had when it carved these mountains that were formed like all of these fucking years ago. So it's like, I don't know, when I read that I was like, that's fucking insane, because I guess usually it like trickles down and they become the small rivers that maybe we see in the Grand Canyon, but no, like this thing has been going at the same rate that it was when it carved these huge ass mountains that you see, because some of these mountains that I go to later describe, I have the meters somewhere down below, but it's like over 3,000 feet, these cliffs. So it's like these huge rivers carved all this shit out, and like they're still going at the same rate.
Wow.
So like powerful force.
Hell yeah. Wow.
And they're fucking like a really deep river. Like some parts are equally like 3,000 feet deep. So yeah, it's insane, bro.
No fucking way.
Not all of the river, but some parts of the river are said to be that fucking deep. It's
like halfway to the Earth's core.
I'm
don't quote me on that. It's a joke because I don't know how deep the Earth's core is.
But it's fucking deep, bro. Like it's when
they say Devil's Gate, man.
Yeah, it's. I have to like calm down. It's.
I'm like I'm got the goosebumps, the shivers, but I'm hot.
And there's even evidence of prehistoric animals living and roaming in this area. So there were bones and tusks found of these creatures called the mastodons. It's a part of the elephant family. So they were found in the North Country from the Peace River area to Klondike, and the natives that were actually in the area were said to have come back from the Nahani area and have really accurate drawings of these creatures, even though they weren't technically supposed to be alive during this time. Though it's speculated that, they probably just drew these accurate sketchings from the bones.
They could have been endangered. Maybe there were a few, or one of their ancestors had like a stuffed one.
Yeah. So who knows? Or like maybe there's even like, because I know there are cave drawings that also depict this, so maybe they saw a cave drawing and like brought it back from wherever.
Probably part of their culture, their legends, their stories.
Yeah. And you'll see like the Nahanni Valley in particular has a lot of native culture surrounding the area.
Yeah, I assume that's why it's like it got made a historical site, probably aside from the animals, but also the humans as well.
Yes, definitely the humans for stuff we will get into later. So another really cool thing about this park is that the rivers that are within it are said to have hot springs that are off to the side, and it's rumored that there are these tropical valleys located within the Nahanni Valley. So it's basically what's described as these green oases. A green oasis. A green oasis.
Oasis.
Oasis? Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck is the right word for that? They're like there's an oasis, multiple of them, and they're green, and they're described to have like these tropical plants like cherries, roses, ferns, and it's crazy because it's in this snow-covered land. So it said in these little in these little valleys, in these little tropical valleys, that there are really fat game in this area, that these areas never freeze. It's described as like these really lush, amazing places to kind of like experience in this snowy kind of vastness of forest in between.
What?
And there are a lot of articles that talk about these valleys, though I did find in one magazine that when this one explorer, Dr. Charles Camsell, who was the deputy minister of mines, went to
That's me trying to mime. Okay.
went to explore the valley in 1935. He would find several hot springs, but he would find to no effect whatsoever that the climate had any type of like tropical condition to exist within the hot springs. And there was a guy that we get into later named Andrew O'Brien who just ends up freezing to death in the Nahanni Valley. So it gets... I don't know how accurate that is. And it's not like I can go to the Nahani Valley and like say, oh, it's true that these tropical valleys exist and whatnot. And like I've heard of some scientists and explorers trying to go out and kind of figure out what's going on with this valley, and they can't really figure it out, or they have really strange things happening to them while they're trying to figure it out, and they kind of have to pull back and they don't get to finish their research. So it's maybe these places exist, maybe not. I don't know.
Right. It'd be fucking cool if they did. It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Yeah. But there's definitely rumor that there are such places located within this valley. But like Sarah had said when I showed one picture, there are people that canoe in these locations. Like, I think to this day, some parts of the park are still open to the public if you do want to take a boat or plane there.
Access points.
Yeah. And you can go whitewater rafting, though. Like, the fucking... I don't recommend going here unless you're willing to die. But like I said, it's kind of assuming like that certain parts of these parks are open to the public if you want to take that fucking plane or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, even if you're not just a civilian public member, you're authorized on an expedition, still fucking scary.
And like, if you've never whitewater rafted before, I don't think that these are the beginning rapids that you want to start on. Even if you're like maybe advanced, because like some of these places are described as like fucking turbulent. So yeah, it's like you got to be a daredevil a little bit. But the area is described as a tropical valley in the midst of Arctic wastes, with an evil, poisonous Shangri-La in the heart of the Yukon. Because one of the main reasons that I believe that it's been bothered to be untouched by the land or the government is because it is described as being terribly fucking haunted. So much so that the Canadian government is not even willing to let the public mess with it.
Goosebumps all over my body.
It's this case is like what I would say is like one of the most evidence-based case that we probably have of like some shit going on in the mountains or in the forest,
in the wilderness, or the vastly unexplored wilderness. Like I said last episode,
Yeah.
There's something about the unexplored, like the depths of the ocean, the wilderness that I mentioned in the Alaskan Bermuda Triangle, and what you're speaking about. There's something about that is like, aside from preserving it, there's probably a reason why it's unexplored.
It's just
Multiple
like,
reasons, but
yeah, I don't know, man. It just gets fucking weird. And there's just way too much for you to say that something's not happening. It's not just people fucking we'll get it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
part
yeah.
of the park, and what is the really like worst part of the park in particular is what I've been describing as the Nahanni Valley. But this valley, if you look up the definition, it is not a fucking valley. So I don't know who named it, but they were kind of like misleading a bit because it's fucking huge. So it contains 2 rivers. The 2 main rivers are the Flat River and the Nahani River, but it's more particularly the South Nahani River that is a part of this valley. And a fun fact, kind of not so fun fact, it took people so long to explore this area that it wasn't until like past the 1920s, and people had been in this area since the 1890s. It took them quite a long time, like in the 1930s and 40s and even 60s, to get a full picture of kind of what map we have today, and that's not even a clear picture of the whole entire area. So like Sarah was saying, like very unexplored, very don't know what the fuck is going on there. So from how it's described to me, not probably how you look at it on a map, but how most explorers start off is at the Flat River, and from there you break off into the South Nahani River after you go down. Again, it's like super treacherous all along, even along the Flat River into the South Nahani. And once you get into the South Nahani, and this is like days worth of travel on boat as what it's described, you pass these 4 tall ass canyons. And like I had said, they're 3,000 feet, 915 meters. And as Mr. Ballin had said, the water in some parts is just as deep underneath.
Ugh.
So the creepiest part of the Headless Valley is the fucking canyon bit of it. So it has those 4 big ass canyons, but it's really like the first and the second one that I believe are the creepiest, and it's where the most activity happens. So within the first valley itself, in some of the photos, you can kind of tell the shoreline is really thin, so there's no way for you to really veer your boat off to the side and get off if you want to. It's really just a 10-mile stretch of you're in between these sheer-ass cliffs, and you just have to make your way down the river. And within these cliffs are caves, and some of the caves have been explored, but some of them have been they're too tall, and we don't have equipment right now for us to go in and look, so they're unexplored. And yeah. So also when you go into these caves, because they are so tall, it naturally gets darker. And there's also like this howling wind that is said to be produced when you go through these caves. And yeah, so you're pushing through 10 miles of sheer terror while you have this feeling that some shit is probably maybe in there.
Like they're watching you. They're always watching. They know.
Yeah, so many tribes in the area, as you can imagine, did not want to settle in this area, and many of them did not. There was a lot of rumor between the natives in the land that this place was haunted by various spirits, specters, many devils roamed in this area. The actual name, Nahanni, comes from the language of the indigenous Dene people that were one of the first inhabitants of the area, and it actually translates to people over there. And what they mean by that is the first true, supposedly, inhabitants of the land were said to be the Naha tribe, and this happened some 9,000 to 10,000 years ago. And the Naha tribe is said to be extremely violent. They're not probably a tribe that you would want to run into. The Dene people would say that they were fierce warriors that were average than the larger man. And they were said to wear masks and armor adorned with gruesome imagery, I guess to try and scare the victims. And they were also known to brutally decapitate their victims.
Oh.
It was also said that they had these strange and powerful weapons that no one, at least to these native Dene people, had ever seen before.
My God. So had the Dene come in contact, I guess?
They had. So the Naha tribe lived high in the mountains, and when the Dene, I guess, finally decided to settle in the Nahani Valley, they had the misfortune of meeting the Naha people when they would climb down the mountains into the lower lands and then basically raid and kill whoever was in the area. So they quickly became like the Dene and the Naha were bitter enemies. And from what it was described in one article, there was actually like a fight that was about to go on where like the Dene people were kind of fed up with what was going on. And one guy was like, screw it. I don't care how big these dudes are. Like, I'm going to go in and we're going to plan an attack. And when he went to go in and attack the village, the Naha village was just fucking empty. And, like, he couldn't find the Naha tribe. It just, like, it kind of looked like they just upped and vanished. Like, all of their stuff was there, but no one was there. And there was no evidence as to what happened to this tribe. And that's, like, kind of the only, I guess, evidence that the white man has of the Naha tribe is the folklore from the Dene people that said, like, hey, this is, like, what has happened to us. Because in one article I read, they were trying to say, like, oh, the Nahani Valley, the people over there, that's, like, the white man trying to differentiate the mountain natives from the freaking river natives. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of like you're white-splaining it. Don't.
Yeah.
It's like a native word, and they're using it not for a white man to differentiate. They're using it to literally describe, like, their lore of the people that lived in these faraway places in the mountain and would literally terrorize them.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. So that was kind of annoying to read, but that is one of the theories that they had, but it's not true. It's meant the people far away, meaning these Naha people.
Wow.
But yeah, they like became a legend of the mountain when they suddenly fucking disappeared.
I wonder if they utilized caves as their escape bunkers.
Bro, one of my theories is like that you'll see later on there's a lot of connection between what's going on and like potentially a tribe, an indigenous tribe being in the area that were probably like, I can understand a government protecting because, you know, it's like ethically, how can you justify it? So you just secure off the land to make sure that no one can like go in and mess with them. That's the best way to do it rather than like killing a whole fucking indigenous tribe, you know,
or
a culture.
Displacing them and forcing our culture.
Yeah, and it's like you want to displace these people and I go on to say what they do. Like, I don't think you can displace these type of people. So it's just like, it's fucking, that's my theory on what it is, but we'll get into it because, bro, it's fucking wild. Sorry.
Yay.
Another thing that I do have to mention before I get into the crazy shit, because there is not just like these creatures, because I don't mention it, but one of the things that is described is later on, like a scientist describes this man that is said to like wear a mask, and he kind of is described not as human-like, but more kind of like Bigfoot-like, and he seems like above average and maybe like more ape-like hairier, has like more, I guess you would say, like a Neanderthal type of appearance, but he adorned like a mask, a loincloth, and like a axe. But like people like that have been described as like been seen wandering in this valley area. And so I guess you could describe that as maybe what you would say a Naha tribe member was if they... But it's like, I don't know, that's a far off fetch, but there have been rumors of like a Bigfoot type of creature kind of roaming around. And also a part of the indigenous lore is that they have the Wahila, which is what they describe as like this white wolf-like creature that roams the area, and this is also what is haunting the valley.
Ooh.
Yeah. If you want to look at it from a scientific standpoint, they are trying to say that it is similar to the gigantic wolf beast called an amphiconionist. I don't know, fucking Google it. It's like a bear dog prehistoric species that roamed the earth. It existed some like 10,000 years ago. But it's not white furred like the Dene people have described this creature and how other people have described this creature as being. So take it with it as what you will. But
yeah.
So by the 18th century, we start to see the white man become involved with the Nahani Valley. So European fur traders would begin to come in and basically start the rumor that, hey, there's some game over here that we can use potentially for fur. And then later on, there is a lot of rumor that there is gold in the area. So...
Of course.
There is a tale that floated around one of the, that there was a lost mother lode located somewhere on Bennett Creek. And Bennett Creek is basically like a little thing, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a little thing off of Flat River. So it's an area right around the Flat River as it runs into the South Nahani River.
A creek.
So, yeah, it's a creek right in that little fucking area. So this, I don't know what a fucking creek is, okay? So this area is also believed to be the location of the McHenry mine, which is a place where a man, McHenry, went and left some 40 pounds of like rich ore in the area.
Oh.
So there were some rumors, going around feeling some poor people to go out into the area and look for it.
Oh, that'll do it.
There is no there's actually no large amount of gold that is actually discovered, though one thing I do find really odd, and I don't know if it's like part of the fucking curse of the river or what, but there are a lot of people that will say, oh, I have found vast amount of riches in this river, or I have found huge amounts of gold, like we've struck it big, and either something will happen and like they end up losing it in the river, or it just, no one ever sees it but the people that claim to see it.
Right.
In the summer of 1897, you have a huge gold strike that happens in Klondike. And this is the first time that we see people really crossing into the area after some of the 766 stampeders would use the South Nahani River as a shortcut to try and get to Klondike. So out of that 766, it said a few handfuls would, or like a handful or two, I guess, would go through the South Nahani River, and out of that handful, only 2 would make it alive.
Oh.
Though it's not, I guess, as uncommon for people to, of course, die through exploration.
Right.
It's kind of like the first death that we start to see in this area. And it is said that in the aftermath of this rush, when people are kind of like losing hope on finding gold, they're looking in other areas, and they start to go into the Nahani Valley, you also start to hear rumors again of like these tropical valleys existing where there are these huge fat animals and these wild exotic plants that you can go see, and it just kind of like brings the lore of wanting more people to get into the area.
Right. It sounds like someone had a real boring but deathly expedition and they wanted to come home with stories.
Yeah. But I mean, it started to work, and you would start to see people go in and explore the area and then die. So our first example of this happens in the spring of 1905 or 1904. I got varying years from different articles. But Either way, it is a man by the name of Willie McLeod and his brothers Frank and Charlie who would come to Fort Liard. And it's kind of hard to say. It makes it seem in a lot of articles that Willie was on his own, but in some it makes it seem like all the brothers are coming in together. But either way, Willie would come into Fort Liard, and he would have a 10-ounce bottle filled with gold nuggets. And he said that even though he has this 10-ounce bottle of gold nuggets, he had hit it big right beforehand. So he had actually been in the Flat River area and found a shit ton of gold and was putting it in his boat, but when he was going back up the Flat River, his boat capsized and he lost all the gold. And so when he made it back to shore, he was like, damn, well, that sucks. But I mean, like, I found a lot of gold, so I shouldn't have any problem. So he went back to the area, filled up that little, it's described as like an Enos bottle, filled that little 10-ounce Enos bottle up, and then safely made it back into Fort Liard. But he told his brothers, like, hey, there's a shit ton of gold in this area. I fucking saw it. Like, let's get some supplies, let's get some food, and let's make our way back. Yeah, and let's make, yeah, because I think he had to end up, like, building another boat in order to get back. But he's like, let's get some fucking supplies and let's make our way back up there. And so one of his brothers, Frank, agrees, and he goes, yeah, I'll go with you. And the other brother, Charlie, decides, like, for whatever reason, hey, I'll just stay back and I'll wait for y'all. And he said, no problem. And they end up getting a Scottish engineer whose name was Robert Weir to go along with them. So they invested in tools and supplies, and I think about a year later, maybe, they would, or however long it took them, they would make their way back up to the Nahanni Valley and never be heard from again.
Oh.
It would actually, from what I read, take about 2 to 3 years for the brother Charlie to gather a search party in order to look for his brothers.
To be like, yeah, I really don't think they're coming back.
It was like...
Because they could have run off with the gold, and who knows. But
yeah, I mean, I guess. And it was also described that, like, you know, it was pretty common for people to take a long time to go exploring. And, like, if you were searching for gold, you would be out there. So, like, it was described that the first year that passed, Charlie was like, yeah, no problem. They have hit it big and they have a shit ton of gold that they're digging out. Because obviously if they were to come back and say, oh, there's a crap ton of gold, and they come into town with all this gold, like, everyone's going to go to that area. So they're probably trying to get as much as they can and come back with as much as they can carry. But yeah, he kind of waits 2 years and then he's like, oh, I think something might be wrong. And so finally, within the 2 to 3 year mark, he gathers a party and he makes his way out to the Flat River. So within the few days span, he goes through the Flat River and ends up passing what's described as, like, this huge bend within the river that takes you out into the second canyon. And it is right at the end of the second canyon, right before you enter the first, when the shoreline starts to get a little thicker and you can start to actually, like, veer your boat off to the side.
Like, there's trees,
that Charlie and his crew see a tent and a little campsite off on the shoreline. So the tent was in the Beckett's Creek area, and as soon as Charlie and his crew went to get off of the boat and start to approach the campsite, they started to realize that fucking something was terribly wrong. Because as Charlie began to approach the tent and the fire, he would happen upon the headless remains of his 2 brothers, Willie and Frank.
Oh, shit.
So one of the pairs was described to be lying underneath a pair of blankets, and it was basically described that he had been killed or beheaded in his sleep, while the second body had been seemingly reaching out for a nearby gun. So he had supposedly seen, I guess, what was about to kill him, and he was trying to potentially fight off whatever was coming at him. I did find in one magazine that it did describe that the brothers were not in fact decapitated, and that they had actually used the hair on the head to identify the brothers and not what was in the brothers' pockets as described in the other articles that had said that they were decapitated. But this article also, I will say, does say that these bodies are also shot, which I did not read in any other article. And it did try to spin off the idea that these people were robbed in some type of way, which is one of the theories that is pushed more so by like the media, I would say, as a like kind of cover-up attempt of like, oh, these gold prospectors were just merely robbed for their gold, and that's why gold's never found at the scene, or that's why...
Well, it sounds like they didn't even make it to the place with the gold if they were on that weird bank, unless they were like on their way back.
Well, Beckett's Creek is where Willie had supposedly found the gold in the first place.
Okay.
So they had like gone back to that area where they had found the gold, but it just...
Yeah.
It's not...
So, sorry, say you like that they were beheaded though, were their heads still around?
So I don't believe that there were any skulls found. I know in Ballin's episode, though I wasn't able to find it in an article technically, he did say that a couple of months later there was a skull fragment that was found in a river a couple of miles away, I believe. But that was supposedly belonging to the third guy, Robert Weiss. But that was like the only thing that was said to be found of Robert. So one of the theories that I did hear was that it's said that Robert maybe killed Frank and Willie, took whatever gold they had, and then ran off. And I do believe, I don't think I wrote it down, but I really want to say that in one article there were rumors that a guy that looked like Robert was spending gold in areas after the whole disappearance, but don't quote me on that.
Right.
But I really do think that I read that bit in one of the last articles that I was reading. But what happened when the cops went to the scene of where these bodies were was that they basically said that the pair died of natural causes. I think that they said that they fucking like starved to death, and that animals had essentially taken their heads off, which I'm like
that's the most appetizing. Okay.
And
it's all skull. There's no meat.
Yeah, it's just like and why would you sit there and starve to death when you could go down the river and attempt to get food?
I bet there's great fucking salmon in that river.
It's just, yeah, it's like really fucking weird, and you'll see a common theme. The cops are very much to say like, oh, natural causes. And like I had said, in one article it said that a lot of these people were shot, but that was the only article that I read that, and a lot of that article was it was like written in the 1950s, and it was very much a time where I would believe that like the government fucking paid this newspaper
it was like
to maybe write the article. Yeah. And there are a lot of articles during the time where this is going on that are releasing kind of like a lot of fake news.
Well, yeah, I was about to say back then, fake news, like in newspaper and magazines, whatever, you could literally write whatever you want and not be held accountable.
I didn't write the name of the newspaper down, but there was one article specifically that a lot of articles would call out and saying like they were publishing shit in the same year, but it was a few months off in like February of the 1950s, and they were throwing the propaganda that like a lot of these people were robbed and killed, and that's like not the case. And it was just like giving a lot of theories that had already been disproved, and so it was getting kind of crazy at one point.
Research wasn't as good Googled back then.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot harder to Google
access
back then.
to information, I should say.
But this death is really what put the valley on the map in terms of like some spooky shit is going down. And this is also the time that this valley right in between the first and second canyon gets its coined nickname, Headless Valley.
I see why.
Mm-hmm. In 1917, you have a Swedish prospector by the name of Martin Jorgensen who had spent decades trying to collect gold in the Yukon Valley before he decided to, in the Yukon area before deciding to make his way into the Nahani Valley. So he had actually built a cabin in the Flat River area and had begun a small mining operation. And according to word that he had sent to one of his friends, one of his friends in the Ross River area named Poolfield, he said that he struck it rich. Like, he found a shit ton of gold. He's doing really well for himself. Like, things are about to go frickin' good. But after that, they heard no word from Martin again. And so Pole started to get really fucking worried. He was like, oh shit. So he got a little search party together and they sent out a search and they went out in search of Martin. So based on the letter that Martin had sent last, they kind of got a fairly good idea of where he had set up his little mining prospect. And as they made their way down the Flat River, they found the area that Martin had been residing. But as they walked closer, what they would discover was the burned remains of Martin's cabin, along with the headless corpse of Martin located right next to the cabin.
Huh.
So, like I had said, in that one article, it said that Martin had been shot at long distance, though, again, like I had said with the cops and investigators of the RCMP, which is like the Royal Canadian Mountain Police, they decided that he died of like natural causes, and that again it was like these animals that had fucking taken off his head, and it's,
They don't
I guess,
even
like,
want to know the truth.
the squirrels fucking committing revenge arson on the cabin, and that's like what set it ablaze. It's just like, it was fucking weird. A lot of people were saying like there's an obvious connection between the headless corpses of the fucking brothers and this dude now, and the cops are like, no, there's no connection. It's, everything's happening naturally. It's just kind of sweeping it under the rug. Just kind of don't hear.
Yeah, they don't want to know the truth. Like I said, they're probably freaked out and they don't realize what could possibly be doing this, so they blame it on animals because they don't fucking want to know, because they know they'll be beheaded next if they try and figure it out.
Probably. And another kind of like strange thing is, even though Martin said, hey, there was a shit ton of gold in this area, no gold was found at his cabin or near the area. Though in 1946, there would be a man named Frank Henderson that would return from a trip in the Nahani Valley with 30 ounces of gold. And there are rumors that this is some of the gold that Martin was talking about when he was saying, oh, I hit it big. But either way, like, these deaths are enough to get the townspeople fucking freaked out and get the rumors swirling that some creepy ass shit is going on. And it only fuels when creepy ass shit continues to fucking happen. So in the winter of 1922, people would happen upon the remains of World War I vet John O'Brien. And though his head was attached to his body, this was one of the stranger deaths, because when they walked upon him, it looked as if the fire had been going, but this man looked like he was like instantly frozen to death somehow. Like, he was sitting there holding a thing of matches in one hand, and it just looks like someone like straight out of a movie, just like tapped him and he froze instantly. Like, it's not, when the people came across it, they're like, that's not how a body naturally freezes. It looks off. It looks unnatural.
Ugh.
Like, it was very ominous to fucking look at this dude who froze to death, like sitting in front of a fire, holding a box of matches. It gets even weirder when in 1926 you have a hunting party that would set up camp for the night near the Flat River in that Headless Valley location, when they woke up in the morning and noticed that one of their campmates, a female named Annie Laferret, had actually disappeared from the group during the night. So the group would spend hours looking for her with no luck. And even when they went back into the town to report it, and officials, tried to search the area, trying to find this woman, there would be no luck in finding Annie.
Was she the only woman of the group?
I could not get that.
Because that would be interesting if she was.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but
you never know.
You never know. What makes this so fucking freaky is that a few months later, you have a native whose name is Big Charlie, who actually hears offhand, like in passing conversation, that this woman has recently gone missing. And he goes, oh my God, what I saw that night that I went camping is a fucking lot creepier now. Because what he says and what he goes to the cops with is that he was actually camping the night that group, that hunting party, was out camping. And it was in somewhat of the same area. And he was awoken that night that Annie went missing to the sound of rocks splashing down in a nearby river. And when he poked his head to see what the fuck was up, he sees a naked woman climbing up a hill on all fours. And it's described that this woman is either like running away from something, or Charlie describes her as like being possessed. Like, either way, he says, like, when he sees this woman climbing up this mountaintop, this like hill, he does not even attempt to say anything to her to try and stop her, help her. He's just like, I looked at her and I saw evil, and he just like, but I mean, I can't, like, he did the right thing. I would have not, like, been like,
don't try and be a hero.
Ma'am, you need to stop running up that hill. Like, what the fuck? And by the time he had told police this, it had already, like, months had passed, and she was naked running in a mountain range where it fucking snows. So it's just, like, the theory is, obviously she was never found again, that at this point she was long gone.
Ugh. Brr.
In 1927, you have the skeletal remains of a tall man. It was said that these remains belonged to a man nicknamed the Yukon Fisher, because I don't think they really had an identity for this dude. He was supposedly some outlaw or prospector who was running away from the RCMP and died while hiding from the police in the Nahanni Valley. It was said that this man, though, had used gold nuggets at some point to purchase goods while on the run. So it's like maybe he had found gold in this area, thought he would make it big, and then did not make it. It was described that a .44 rifle was laying on the ground next to him with the barrel inexplicably bent out of shape.
Oh.
And it was also said that the charred remains of his shelter were located nearby, though again, you would have no indication as to how he died. I do believe that his head was not decapitated, like it was still on his body. But they could give you no explanation as to like how this guy actually died or what happened to him. You have another disappearance that occurs in 1928 when you have a prospector by the name of Angus Hall, who is described by people as impulsive and really tempestuous. So, sticking to his character, he decided that the group that he was with wasn't going fast enough and that he was going to go ahead of them. And when the group can't find him, all they're able to find is it's like a little trail, and they find a final boot print several meters from where he was last seen. And it seems as though he just took that one step and was lifted mid-stride off of the ground.
Ooh. Mm-mm.
And has never been heard from or seen from since.
Nope. Oh, God.
Our next body would not be discovered until 1931, from what I could find. There was a search going on for a man named Phil Powers. From one article, I do believe it was started by his fiance after he missed their wedding. But what happened when they sent out that search party was that they came across his burnt cabin and headless corpse.
Ugh.
There were no arrests that were made in his death, and the RCMP would try to blame a faulty stovepipe for, I guess, setting the fire and then killing him. And then I guess maybe the animals did the decapitation is what the police were trying to say. But there was a lot of evidence later on that would prove that it's not a faulty stovetop that fucking killed him. It's like we don't know what did it, but it wasn't a faulty stovetop, okay? It's right. Just... One really interesting theory that I found, and I mean, it may explain some, but it does not explain all, was that of the mad trapper of Rat River.
Ooh.
So there is actually a Canadian fugitive named Albert Johnson, even though that's not his real name, but no one knows who he really is. All we know is that he was a loner who lived under a pseudonym, who was definitely like a bad dude, who lived about 40 miles away from the Nahanni. But he becomes known as the Mad Trapper of Rat River.
Like the Jeepers Creepers of the Nahani.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. He had apparently gone to the area in search of McLeod's lost mine. So after the McLeod's brother's death, it is rumored that, like, because in one of the trees I had forgotten to mention, it was carved that, like, there's prospects here, like prospects are heavy here, something to like indicate that, hey, like there's a shit ton of gold here. Yeah. And so after that, people were like, there's a shit ton of gold in this area. Well, so you have
his brother that went out looking for them, so I'm guessing they survived the trip back home and was able to relay what they found.
You definitely have some people that survive the trip into the Nahanni Valley, but definitely a lot of people don't.
Well, I'm just saying in that trip in particular, the McLeod brother, the third brother...
Charlie, was able to get back.
Okay, so he was able to definitely at least tell his account on what happened and kind of like, pass on the legend of why they were there at least and stuff.
Yeah. So a lot of people, like, after this, and after, like, Charlie went back and said what happened, they would be in search of whatever prosperity that the McLeod brothers were talking about.
Right.
So in 1931, you have a native trapper that would complain to the local cops that this dude Albert had actually been tampering with his traps, and so he wanted to get it taken care of. So you have Constable Alfred King and Special Constable Joe Bernard that go over to Albert's cabin to try and ask him about the allegations. And when they get there, they notice, like, he has smoke going on in the chimney. He's kind of, like, being a dick. He's like, no, I don't really want to fucking talk to you. And then when the constables, like, try to walk around the house, like, peer into the window to see what's going on, he, like, covers the windows, which I kind of get, but the cops are like, you're being sketchy, so we're going to get a search warrant. So 5 days later, they return with 2 additional men, and a search warrant. And Albert decides to shoot Alfred King through the door. Thankfully, King would survive, but this would start a 150-mile or 240-kilometer foot chase that would end in a shootout in Eagle River in the Yukon area that would actually end with Albert being killed. But what you find inside of Albert's hut may justify this whole chase and him getting killed, because what the constables find is gold teeth that were actually extracted from prospectors that had been found dead in the valley.
Oh, shit.
And so once this happens, there's a lot of rumor going around that Albert Johnson, who's not even his real name because we don't really know who this dude fucking is, but he was the one who was going in and killing these prospectors who had been disappearing in the Headless Valley area.
Like beheading to steal their teeth and shit. Oh my God.
Yeah. And, I mean, it definitely would explain. I mean, he at least found a dead body and decapitated the head or extracted the teeth. He did something to probably account for some of these cases in the beginning, but I mean, he dies in 1931. So it doesn't explain any of the shit that happens after, unless his ghost is fucking haunting Nahanni Valley and, like, adding to it. Because what we see after this mad trap, river, whatever, is that in 1936, you have 2 men by the name of Joe Mulholland and Bill Ipier who disappear near their log cabin on the shores of Glacier Lake, which is about 100 miles from Virginia Falls. And though we never find the men's bodies, that's just it. Like, we never fucking find them. So all you find is a burnt out cabin, and that's it. In 1945, you have the body of a miner named Ernest Savard, who is discovered laying in his sleeping bag. And there was a nasty rumor that I read in one article that his head was definitely cut off of his shoulders, but there was one rumor that it was propped on a nearby rock.
Ooh.
Though there is, again, other rumor that it was never found in the area.
Right. Ugh.
In 1946, you would have a man named Jack Patterson, who would disappear after failing to show up with a meeting with one of his partners named Frank Henderson, and Frank would begin the search for him. It was while Frank and his party were out in the Nahani Valley some days in when they were actually approached by some natives and were warned that there were white figures moving around in the area that they needed to be cautious of. And that night, after hearing that warning, Frank and the group heard these crazy, like, howling and crying sounds. And it was described by Frank that it was just the energy of, like, they were trying to fucking scare them off. And so the next day, like, they completely abandoned the rescue mission and just got the fuck out. And Jack Patterson was never found or heard from again. They rightfully so. A lot of fucking people have died in this area. Like,
you mentioned that name before, right? Frank Henderson?
He did find gold in the area, and he also, like, I think his uncle did something, or maybe he was the uncle. He or his uncle did a lot of, like, the searches and for this area, and, like, or an expedition or something. So I didn't write it down, but he plays like somewhat of an important part. But he also, I do believe, he finds a big amount of gold. And I do believe it was, like, during one of these expeditions. So, just another thing. In 1962, this was really interesting that I found kind of deep in the articles. There was a pilot who had actually crashed in the Nahanni Valley and was said in his diary to have lasted about 50 days after the crash. So unfortunately, it would describe how like he would see planes over him like flying, but no one was able to actually get into the crash site or find the crash site until 6 months later. And by that time, the only remnants that were left was his diary and whatever was left of his campsite. But, like, he was nowhere to be found.
Oh, shit.
And it, like, nothing in his diary was weird. It just said that the entries just abruptly stopped one day.
Oh, shit.
And one of the last expeditions for gold that I could find was in 1963 when a group of gold prospectors from Europe had vanished after looking for the McLeod gold mine. But after that, I think, is when kind of, because that was in 63, so after that, the 70s hit, it became a national park, and you would start to see a lot of these places begin to be closed off.
And you're not supposed to steal rocks from national parks.
Yeah.
Much less gold.
In 1983, you do have a hiker in Canadian's Glacier Bay that does find the belongings of a missing prospector. And according to the hiker, they heard a ghostly moan come from the undergrowth before seeing a mysterious masked creature approaching him. But the hiker fled before, he had a fucking chance to ask what his fucking zodiac sign was. Whatever the fuck. It's like he fucking noped the shit out of there like any rightful human being would.
Hell yeah. GTFO always.
Yeah. But, I mean, like, either way, since 1908, a known 44 people have either died or disappeared in this valley since. And if that wasn't enough for you, then there are also mysterious lights and UFO sightings said to happen around this fucking valley as well.
Well, you know why? Ha ha ha. Going back. Geothermal pools.
And if I didn't fucking click off all the fucking X's on your boxes, then I have one last one for you, because in 1964, there is an explorer parachutist. I don't even know how you fucking earned that title, but his name is Jean Boreal, whatever, Frenchy, of Montreal, and he discovers this ice cave that is called the Groet Valley, and in this ice cave are 116 doll sheep that I don't know if it was on purpose. I don't know. It's like religious, sacrificial looking to me, but for whatever reason, they were put in this cave and starved to death, and the carbon date on these sheep was set to 2500 BC. This earned the nickname the Gallery of Lost Sheep, though Jean would call it the Valerie Cavern after his daughter, which I'm like, fuck you, Dad. I do not want a fucking ice cave of 116 dead sheep named after me. What do you think I am?
What the fuck?
Yeah. But, I mean, thank you, I guess, but
like,
no.
just because you discovered something doesn't mean you need to name it after you or your own.
You can name a regular ice cave after me, but not the satanic ritual one, please, I think. But, I mean, either way, he did a lot for the Nahanni Valley exploration, whatever. He was said to discover, like, some 250 ice caves or something like that.
Oh.
So, like, he did a lot, and he didn't die doing it, so.
Nice.
But yeah, of course, since the labeling of it becoming a national park and it becoming that also special thing, a lot of the places where these people have been killed have been closed off due to saving the land, saving the natural habitat. But I think we know the real reason is to save us from whatever the fuck it is that is killing all of these humans in the Nahanni Valley in the Northwest Territory of Canada. Canada, you fucking scare me, and I don't think I will be visiting. At least not
I'll
the
be
Northwest
visiting.
Territory.
But not
the
that
Northwest
area.
Territory. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
wow.
A lot of headless corpses.
Yeah, and the way that just all the other mystery and kind of paranormal stuff ties in. Interesting.
If it's not a headless
And-
corpse, it's like a white fur creature.
Yeah, whoever is doing this, are they like a pyro?
I'm like, where did they get the fire from?
Well, Flintstones. You can make a fire out of
guess.
twigs, out of stones. But it seems like they're into
He got a teenager with a
obviously,
fire
it's a joke.
addiction.
They want to destroy everything that these people are setting out to do, but
Yeah, I mean, maybe I guess they're like pissed that they're ruining the land, so they
Yeah.
want to burn it down. Just as long as it's a controlled fire and you're not burning down the whole valley, I'm cool with it, you know?
Hell yeah. Oh my god.
But yeah, don't go to the Nahani Valley unless, you know, you're okay with unaliving yourself. I'm just like fucking curious.
Me too.
It's always the Alaska, Canada area where I read a lot of cases of like fucking weird shit going on and people like dying. I don't like it, but I also want to visit, but I also don't.
So much mystery surrounds the unexplored. That's what brings me back is ugh.
It's
oh man,
just
that's crazy.
It's the fact that it's so obviously connected, but it's so obvious that they're trying to hide it or hide whatever it is that the connection is.
Yeah. Whatever the government isn't telling us, I'd like to know. And I'm actually going to do a story on some of that soon.
Yeah. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hopefully that sounded as crazy as it sounded when I first heard it. I know I'm not as good of a storyteller as John Ballin. That's probably why this podcast will never take off. But fuck, man, it was just a crazy story when I heard it, and I had to repeat.
Hell yeah. Thank you. I think I'm still just a little in shock. Just because certain aspects, there's a lot of factors that go into why this story is creepy and mysterious, but certain aspects is what really is like grabbing at me to where I'm what the fuck,
It's just like no matter which way you wrap around it, people died. So it's something that at the end of the day, it's fucking like something is killing someone. And it's like not in a way that you could say, oh, it's a natural cause. Because no matter what the fucking government says, you can't show me a fucking animal attack where the head is decapitated so many times in a row. Like I've never heard of that happening in like a decomposing process where there are animals in the area. I've never heard of the head specifically each time being detached. It's
and
like
only the head. Like
only the head. Yeah, you would see multiple parts of the
Doesn't make
fucking
sense.
bones be separated. Yeah, not just the head. And it's just
make
like,
it make sense for me.
yeah, like fucking at least detach an arm first if you're gonna go with that theory. It's just like, I don't know, man. It throws me off. And it's the fact that they're so obviously not hiding it. It's like they think that we're dumb, and it's like, yes, I understand to a degree that I am, but I'm not that fucking dumb.
Right.
Ugh.
I wish I knew somebody on the inside, man.
Right? Cheers to the government taking us seriously one day. Not gonna happen, though.
Cheers to exposing all of the Earth's deep secrets one day, maybe.
Cheers to being ignorant to that shit, actually, because
Yeah, I'll stay in my
probably
bubble.
could've-
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm like, I could have not known about this area
I will train for an
existing.
apocalypse, but I will stay in my bubble.
Fuck, man. I'm like, I'm just like, fuck, I can't believe places like this actually exist. I'm gonna go cry in a hole about it real quick. Okay, until next time, guys, be sure to follow on all the socials.
At RARW podcast.
And send us an email, maybe. Who knows? One day.
Maybe we'll get one. Red Rum and Red Wine Podcast at gmail.com.
And if anything, leave 5 stars and a comment on why you like the show. It always helps us out and helps us get pushed out to the public. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Good Pods.
Yeah. And until next time, mishaps, see ya for the next fucking mishap. That's our life. Bye.